Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Behind the Human. I'm your host, Mark Champagne, and it's my job to unpack the stories and mental fitness practices keeping people living at the top of their game, personally and professionally. So today we've got Reg on the show, who's the founder and CEO and lead trainer at Neuro Masters Academy, an organization dedicated to personal development through NLP, hypnotherapy, and other transformative modalities. Drawing from his own journey overcoming depression and unfulfillment, Reg has helped thousands worldwide break through personal barriers and achieve success. I mean, there's no shortage of barriers and stress and mental blocks out there in this world, Reg. So I'm pretty excited to have you. And I want everyone to know that we're definitely recording across some wild time zones. It's 2 a.m. and he is here ready to rock, energized. So your practices clearly work, brother. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Okay, before we get in, because there's so many tools and concepts and whatnot that I can see just having done the prep for this conversation. But before we get into all of that, everyone gets the same question, and that's if we strip away all of the bios and titles and all that kind of stuff, just who are you? Like, who's the human in front of us today?
I love that question, and I think it's quite appropriate to the name of your podcast, I suppose. Behind the Human, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Behind the Human. Yeah. Look, this is a guy right here who's, like a lot of people. I'm not going to try to make myself exclusive here. Gone through a lot of adversities. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of deep adversities. A lot of pain, a lot of, I think in the modern world, what's called trauma, but essentially it's barriers to exploring and discovering and creating, with respect to who you are. And I think over the course of this journey, like many people find, a lot of people can go down the wrong path. I happen to go down the right path, which is getting the lessons, rationalizing, the matters that occurred, and trying to make something of it that I can put out there and help other people.
Yeah.
Move on. And because the reality for a lot of human beings is that suffering is inevitable, right? It's part of the human experience.
Yeah. It's I think it's how you respond to that suffering versus react. And to your point, pick a path that leads you to either, I'm hesitant to say a better place, but it probably is a better place, but maybe it's another place versus one that, drives you further down into the ground, depending on what you're going through. So what is your story? How did you, I mean, I'm quite familiar with your work today, but what was life like before all of this work?
Yeah, look, what was life like before? I think it was an ordinary life. It was and the word ordinary has so many meanings. Like, I'm going to use the word ordinary to say it wasn't exceptional. It was good. Like, I got by. I saw things, based on what I'd gotten from others, others' values, others' ideas of what success means, what life means, what relationships means. And I think when it got down to it, I did not see a lot of good relationships. I mean,
Okay.
let me cut through everything. When it comes down to it, I saw, terrible relationships. People hating each other. People, a lot of divorces. Not a lot of happy arrangements, right? And the whole thing was, life's meant to be unhappy. You just got to choose what level of unhappy.
Oh.
That's sort of at a very high level, right? That's the sort of thinking, that's the sort of ideas I came from until I took control of my life.
So what was What pushed you to take that step? Because I mean, a lot of the people that come on this show, as well as myself, frankly, they're, we've gone through something, or
Yeah.
we've had some reflections and so forth. And I think there's a lot of people out there that pick up on those cues as well. The difference, though, being that they don't take that step to change or take another path because, I mean, probably something I think you'd probably resonate with. That's challenging. And, it's the opposite of typically of the feeling of, safety and certainty
Yep.
and so forth that we seek as just humans in general from an emotional perspective. It's really hard, or can be really hard. So for you, what allowed you to take the step into, what I see as you and the team at Neurohackers helping thousands, right? Neuro Masters, sorry. I'm just reading, I'm looking on the back. I see your background, I see Neurohackers. There's a lot there.
Yeah, this is our studio. So,
okay.
Neurohackers is what our people call themselves.
Okay.
Neuro Masters Academy is really, the company, so to speak.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, what got me to look at things differently and take these steps, right? Look, firstly, I became a dad at a very early age, Mark. I was a dad at 25, right? And this is a very different journey. And when you come from a traumatic past and you suddenly become a parent, strange things happen. This is a very different perspective,
Sure.
right? You're watching your children grow up, and suddenly your own life is hitting back at you, right? I say this especially if you've had adversities. So I think there were some trigger points there, and then I ran a few businesses, and I think you will agree, running a business, it's a very spiritual journey. If it's the idea of, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. You have to face these battles. You have to grow up in so many ways. And I think that, and then you're relating to so many people. I read that recently, like, there's one thing you don't want to do when you're in business. You do not want to hold resentments.
Yeah.
You do not want to hold resentments, right? Against anyone or anything, because you're going to end up meeting so many people, having so many relationships. And I think somewhere in there, I realized that I got some work to do.
Okay. And then how did you get to, because I'd like to spend a good amount of time, like I said before, hitting record. I haven't had anyone on that specializes or works with hypnotherapy and NLP and so forth. So I'd love to dive into that as a tool, because I think it's super. First of all, I don't know that much other than NLP. I think I've got to know a little bit more, but I'd love to know the differences, the connection points and whatnot. But perhaps before we get into that, how did you get in? Like, how did you land on these tools? I guess for yourself, but then of course now you've operationalized them in a way to help others.
Yeah. Look, for me, it was when I was in business. I'm looking to improve myself, grow myself as a leader. I think that was a big thing for me. Become a better communicator, become a better leader, create better results. And so I did a lot of things. And anyone who's done any kind of self-improvement, self-help, personal development, whatever, somewhere along the line will end up, I would think so, at an NLP or a hypnosis seminar. It's pretty common. What I didn't realize was just how powerful it was. Of course, it depends on who's training you, what the context is. And so I'm going around the world and attending these seminars and these trainings, and I was just blown away, because the label doesn't do it justice. It was how phenomenal the work is. You literally changing your entire setup. You're changing how you construct it. And I think maybe I just did it so well because I'm a great student. I was a great student. Like, I just, when I throw myself into something, I'm just all in.
Okay.
And every technique, I was just like, whoa, like this was changing me at a neurological level. And so I think somewhere along the journey, Mark, I realized how powerful it is. I was seeing things different. I often say at my seminars, now I couldn't converse with Reg from 15 years ago. I literally would not know what to say, simply because it's the same person. Oh, sorry, it's the same body, but it's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And the simplest way to know that is what was it? I'm sure you'd agree, Mark. There are things that were important to you. Important to you is a key phrase 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that are probably nowhere near in your nervous system right now. They don't mean nothing to you.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Now, if 80% of things that were important to you are not important any longer, and there's a whole lot of new things that are important to you that were nowhere in your neurology at that time, you're a different entity. You happen to be in the same vehicle, same body.
I like what you're saying about that, because I think fundamentally, if we all stop and pause and actually think about that, we can see it. But the autopilot kind of society that we live in, and the fast pace and this and that, I think many of us don't do that. And it's a good reminder, though, even listening right now, to just kind of take a pause and maybe pull out a journal and reflect on this, because I think what it does is it shows us what's possible, no matter where we're at right now in our lives. Whatever your circumstances, everyone's different, of course, but just to actually go back and see, wow, yeah, I have changed, and whether that's wanted or unwanted change, the change is possible, and we always have these moments or these opportunities in life where I think we can write kind of the next chapter, right? If we take some time and be intentional with it. So for you with hypnotherapy, I don't want to make any assumptions. Why don't we define from your perspective, like, what is hypnotherapy, and is there a difference, or what are the difference between that and NLP?
Oh, great. Yeah. So hypnotherapy, it's a term that is used to define the process of using hypnosis from a therapeutic perspective. In reality, hypnosis is everywhere. Anytime you accept something that makes an impact to how you behave, it's hypnosis. A small example is when you're little, anytime someone who has authority, someone who is you see as an authority, you perceive as an authority, says something to you, it's going to bypass, your critical thinking mind, your conscious mind. So it's accepted as true. That, very simply speaking, that's hypnosis.
Interesting. Yeah.
So hypnotherapy and NLP are basically just, these terms I'm going to call this the study of the unconscious mind, this intelligence that makes you breathe when you sleep. To put it very simply, you go to sleep, right? You're breathing while you're sleeping, for God's sake. I mean, that is miracle in itself, right? Yeah. You're not even conscious. You're just sleeping. And then you twist and you turn and you do all these different things. I mean, let's not make it spooky. It's pretty simple. Yeah. There is an intelligence around you, right? Let's call it the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind. We call it the unconscious. Simple. Now, there are ways to bypass your critical thinking mind. Like, in Australia, you got cigarette packs that say this shit will kill you. Yeah. It has rotten lungs on it. It has dead people on it. And it's $50 for a packet. Yeah. And the sales are off the roof. Yeah. Can you guess why? Tell me. From a mind perspective. Like, someone's telling you, you're going to die if you have this. Yeah. And it's showing you horrible pictures. Yeah. And you're looking at it. We have previous programming that tells us, the opposite is true. Well, partly that when you look at something like that, your conscious mind goes, oh yeah, oh, that's okay. I'll have it anyway. I'll be fine. This is all your conscious mind. Sure. So how do you explain a person who's been smoking for 30, 40 years, a pack a day? I'm going to use this as a metaphor. He comes in and sees somebody who does a bit of hypnosis, like scary. Hypnosis is nothing. It's just making suggestions, to the unconscious mind with a level of trance, relaxation. And the guy just goes, I can't stand a cigarette. How do you explain that? And what does that tell you? Because smoking is a program. It's a program. It's a pattern. It's like, I can tell you so much research has said people are not going for the cigarette or the nicotine as much as they're going for the action, the behavior.
What's the habit, is it not?
It's a habit.
Yeah.
But if I can bypass your conscious mind, go to your unconscious mind, make suggestions, you're a non-smoker, you're an ex-smoker, you are healthy, you're all these different things, you come out of that trance and you go, wait, cigarette? That's not me. How many other patterns do people run? Self-hate, depression. I know this is a bit controversial, but self-hate is a big one. Procrastination, fear. Could we argue that they're all patterns and they just need to be interrupted? And if you want them interrupted, one of the fastest ways known to mankind is hypnosis.
So how do we practically do that? Because I think smoking is a good example, but as you mention that and that kind of that addictive behavior, my mind goes right to, wow, like the 2024 version of smoking, I feel like is social media at this point in a way. Which I don't know, but I mean, I'm in Canada, but in the US, I think they just suggested, or I think they suggested this in legislation of some sort to actually put, kind of taking the same concept that you mentioned with the terrible, photos on cigarette packs and put those disclaimers on for parents of kids that are signing up for social media, which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get kind of what they're trying to do. Overall, it just I think, solidifies the fact that we have a big problem with some of these technologies when they're not used intentionally or responsibly and so forth. But to your point, there's so many use cases. I think my own mind of like, thankfully, a lot of the mental fitness that I'm surrounded with, I can catch some of those loops, but there's still some really hardwired stuff that, sometimes it's too late, and then you're in this loop, and like, how the hell did I get here? Like I do so much work. So how do you practically, like, how do you guys do it? Like, what's the start? It's getting people into a more trance-like state or calmer state, and then you tap it. Like, what does that look like if someone joins one of your programs or seminars and so forth? What does it look like?
Well, the first thing, Mark, is the understanding of the mind. I think very, very critical for people to understand. I mean, in our school, we talk about 3 different minds. The conscious mind, I'm not sure what exactly your demographic of your audience is, so hopefully it's not too spooky, but it's pretty practical. You have the conscious mind, your thinking mind, willpower, reason, logic, imagination, sure. Then you've got the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind, which is kind of like the intelligence, like everything you're absorbing, you're thinking about. At some point, there is an intelligence that is capturing that information. It's pretty basic stuff, but I think people get spooked out by it. It's nothing spooky. When you drive in a car, when you're 18 and you learn how to drive a car, first it has to be your conscious mind. It takes about 18 to 30 days. And you're like, oh, I'm going to press this, and you're fumbling and whatever. What happens after that? Suddenly, something else is driving the car. I ask people all the time, you made this long drive. Do you know how you got there? No.
Yeah.
Right? So arguably, it's your unconscious, it's your subconscious intelligence. You know what I'm talking about. When you drive a car, your hands just doing all these things.
Yeah.
Your feet are doing all these things. So it's a beautiful part of the human phenomena. That's the unconscious mind. And then we have the higher conscious mind, which, I won't go into right now, but it's a sort of a slightly more higher intelligence, more abstract.
Yeah, you can go there on this show. I mean, we're all for everyone listening here. The through line is we're here because we want to grow and evolve, and we're trying to pick up as many tools as possible. So it's spooky, woo woo, doesn't matter over here.
Okay, that's good, because I've been in a lot of podcasts, and sometimes I have the podcast host telling me, okay, my audience is a little bit freaked out about the subconscious mind. I'm like, really? Okay. But I think this is cool. So going back to your question, can you repeat that question for me?
Yeah, it
Because
was just like, how do you practice, just to give, because I'd love to know as well, then everyone listening, like, what does it look like when we're a part of one of your programs, or how do we get to that? Like, what are the initial steps to get into that hypnosis? Like, how do you lead people through, and like, what does that look like, I guess?
Gotcha. Yeah. So what I was saying was, we take our students through an understanding of the mind. Like, this
Yeah.
should be non-negotiable. Like, I know I have a mind. I know what it does. I know what I can influence it to do. So we got to get that right. We got the foundations right. From there on, it's simply a case of talking about this state of focus, right? In the corporate world, we have this fancy word these days, mindfulness. Really. I mean, all of that is trying to say one thing: shut everything else out, and just focus and relax on one thing, being present. And I think the word hypnosis, just so you know, Mark, the word hypnosis means nervous sleep. And it was
really?
Yeah, it was a Latin word, I think, and it was incorrectly used for this phenomena. Somebody used it and then it got stuck because they looked at a demonstration. You heard of the term mesmerism?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mesmer. There was a fellow called Mesmer, and he was so fabulous. I mean, this guy got it. He could literally do certain things and have you experience changes. And he was him or someone who was doing mesmerism, which came from his name, because he would just simply make passes over your body, right? And people would have all sorts of ailments and they would just disappear like miraculously. And this guy claimed that, it's the, what does he call it? The magnetic energy that comes from me. He said it comes from me. And this was the problem. Scientists and doctors at the time were like, hang on, comes from you? Well, we're going to do some investigations on it. So they discredited him. Mesmer was absolutely fabulous, right? You can go and your listeners can do all the research on him. This guy got it.
Yeah.
And he would make passes over people's bodies, but essentially all it was someone saw him or someone he had trained, and the patient would lay on the table, right, and the practitioner would stand behind them, behind their head, making passes, and the patient would look up at them. So the idea of fixation, eyes looking upwards, fixated, looking a little bit nervous what the guy is doing. And so that's how the term hypnosis actually came. It was actually, there was an attempt to change the word, but it was too late.
Yeah. Wow.
But really what hypnosis is a state of relaxation, a state of focus. You're listening to God. I mean, if I got you to just relax, completely relax your whole body, totally relaxed, to the point where you're listening to the guy who's speaking to you, all that is intended to do is your subconscious mind is like, yeah, give it to me. He's grabbing onto that information. And it's really actualizing it. And the practitioner working with you must understand some fundamentals, like your model of the world, Mark. If you use certain keywords, certain language, certain ideas of your model of the world, what's happened in your life, what's important to you, if I use them in a session with you, the likelihood that your mind will accept them is exponentially higher.
Okay.
Got it? Yeah. So you're relaxed. When you're relaxed, like just a few minutes after you wake up and the few minutes just before you sleep, that state is the state we're trying to actualize, because that state, your subconscious mind is most impressionable. It's gorgeous. You can see my passion for it. It's very simple. It's completely changed my life. I can literally manifest anything I want.
Yeah. Well, I love it. It's reprogramming, but I think you have to, is there like a journaling flow of some sort or list of questions that you could suggest for us to first, I think maybe even help identify some of the patterns or old programming and language that, we want to change? Because then I imagine, of course there's your programs as well, but I'd love to know what people can do right now at home. Like, is there anything they can do that's an easy step into the practice. And then if they want to explore further, we'll obviously put a bunch of links in the show notes, but like, what can we do now?
Okay, so I'll make this very relatable, I suppose. I'm sure a lot of your audience and yourself have heard of affirmations, right?
Yeah.
Saying positive things to yourself. And there's a lot of legitimacy to that. I think it's better than saying negative things to yourself.
Which we do all the time, just for, because again, I think even affirmations get a bad rap. Someone always has something to say about these things, but I like to challenge people and be like, well, actually though, if you take inventory of what you're saying to yourself all day and start writing that stuff down, it's a bit shocking how we speak to ourselves, right? So I'd rather take the opposite approach and speak kindly, and you can call it whatever the hell you want, but let's just be kind to ourselves to start.
I love how you put that. I love you put that. That's brilliant. I think the way I would put it is simply that, look, just the intention of saying, hey, I'm going to say things that I want coming true. In NLP, there's a phrase we say, and I'm going to say that to all your listeners: say it how you want it. It's very simple, actually. Say it how you want it. I mean, this is a field that was one of the first fields that actually introduced the idea that the possibility of a goal coming true is exponentially higher if you say it in the present tense. Yeah. So instead of saying, I want to be 110 pounds, you say, I am 110 pounds. There's nothing freaky about it. It's nothing like, fraudulent about it. It's simply the science of NLP tells you that your brain runs pictures based on what you say. Pretty simple. If I said the word horse to you right now, what do you see here?
Yeah, you see the horse. Yeah.
It's pretty quick. You didn't do it.
No.
Your unconscious mind did it. You didn't say, hang on, Reg, I'm going to create a picture of a horse. It just happened. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
So things we are saying to ourselves are running pictures. Your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind is a pictogram. It's consistently running pictures after pictures. And here's the thing. In NLP, we call it the VK synesthesia, visual and kinesthetic. Pictures result in feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings lead to focus. Focus leads to behavior. Now, what if you impacted the source code, which is pictures? Right? So affirmations it's a better thing than, especially if you're generally negative, you're going to have to dial it in. You're going to have to say things positively. So going back to your question, here's what I would say to everybody listening. Rather than just going for affirmations, if you want to almost flirt around with self-hypnosis, if you want something that has a more immediate impact, and there are 5 principles to follow. We call them the five golden rules. Number 1, whatever you say about yourself or you want to bring into manifestation, you want to bring into reality. Number 1, say it in a positive frame. Simple. Positive frame means instead of saying, I am not broke, or I'm not fat, or I'm not overweight, you say it how you want it. You say, I am my ideal weight of so-and-so. Pretty simple. That's all that means.
Yeah.
Number 2, specific. I am happy is not something that your unconscious, subconscious mind can figure out really well, right? Because happy is a state. It's not a goal. Specificity is power.
So what would that example be for you? If you, let's say we want to feel happier, like what specifics, or how would you edit that statement, I guess?
Well, everyone has a lack of happiness due to a particular, area or source.
Sure.
In my work, I found the most common factor is relationships.
Yeah.
Either intimate or family. So if I was having a, affirmation or a self-hypnosis around happiness, I would say, you say it was relationship, I would say, I find joy and peace and understanding in understand, or something around that. I understand my partner. I have compassion for my partner, and I learn even from my partner's mistakes. So it's got to get a little bit more specific, because happy is so broad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your unconscious mind needs to be able to run pictures. That's the bottom line, right? Yeah. And so you want to get specific. So if your goal is happy, you say, I find so much happiness in my work. I am happy because I'm doing what I love. You see where I'm going with the level of specificity?
Totally. Yeah. And what's number 3?
Positive specific. Number 3 is present tense.
Okay.
Studies after studies have proven that people who state their goals in the present tense are way more likely to get closer to them than I want to, I will. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem people have. I cannot say that. It sounds fraudulent. Well, hang on. I'm telling you, you're saying it so that your brain runs pictures. There is a big difference in you saying, I am my ideal weight of 110 pounds or whatever the thing is, than saying, I will be. Your brain runs a different picture.
Yeah.
And it only takes, in my research, Mark, 2 weeks, maximum 2 weeks of saying something like that before it becomes super real to your brain.
Wow.
2 weeks. Can people do it? Can people go through that? Oh my God, it feels so fraudulent when I say I'm making $20,000 doing, coaching or doing whatever the work it is. But you got to keep saying it. Wake up, say it. Afternoon, say it. 2 weeks later, the thing is running.
Yeah. And then you start seeing,
literally is running.
Then you start seeing the signs where you have to take action and all that. Because I think that's where, right? Like where everything gets hung up. Because and I'm happy you prefaced all of this and you kind of did a bit of a pulse check on the audience to be like, okay, can we go there? And you can, of course, with this audience. But I'm always reminding, everyone, frankly, especially business leaders who they jump in and they jump out of this work and they're not entirely sure. But the reminder is always, any athlete I've ever interviewed or studied, they're all doing this. This is not
everybody.
Right. Everyone's doing it. So it's almost, and whether, I guess the other comment to that is either you're doing it intentionally, like the top percentage of people that are living a life that they really want, or that they're high performers, whatever the label is, or you're still doing it, but in the reverse, essentially, right? Like it's all that negative self-talk or kind of limiting beliefs and all of that. So, let's just give ourselves the opportunity to adjust and be in the driver's seat of things, which we know, the best of the best are doing, and the Olympians and so forth. So let's go for it, right? Sorry to cut you off. I get passionate about this stuff as well because they're tools.
This is good. I like it. I like what you just said, because there was an article in the Sydney Morning Herald this morning. This golfer, PGA. Did you hear about that? This guy in the PGA golf tour, and he got recommended hypnosis. And this guy has won the whole thing. I'm telling you, right? This is today.
Okay.
Can you allow me screen sharing so I can show you the article?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that works. Let me show you that. I literally shared that with a ton of my students today, because now what's going to happen is the professional sports world is going to get a wind of this, and suddenly it's going to be the jam. So here we go. Cameron Davis used hypnotherapy. This is today. Yeah. Mark, this is today, July 1st. Yeah. After falling out of love with golf before a drought-breaking PGA, like this is big stuff, like golf tour. This is all over. You can actually look that up. This ABC credits hypnotherapy as secret behind Gutsy. This is all over the freaking news. This is today.
So now, what was his? What was he working? Do you know? I mean, I'll read the article after, but like, what did the hypnotherapy do for him?
Well, it got him dialed back in. It's same thing. He got those suggestions built in, positive, specific, repetitive. He got all that built in, and his performance. I mean, we had a guy, his name was Kyle. This was like a few months ago. His coach contacted us, and his coach is a pole vault coach.
Okay.
His name is Aaron. Aaron, if you ever listen to this, I'm talking about you. And Aaron said, you know, Reg, if you guys are that good, you know what? I'm going to send one of my students, one of my, you know,
Athletes,
students,
yeah.
athletes, to you guys. And I want to check what happens. So he sends Kyle over, 90-minute session. Mark, this guy, and I'm saying this on record, I don't know how long it's been since he's won a medal. He wins an NCAA gold medal, and now he's being prepared for the Olympics. 90-minute session.
Yeah. So what do you think did it for him? Without, I mean, you can share what as much as, but like what? Just so again, so we can understand, is it someone like a Kyle? Like, was he like, what was he trapped in, and how did the hypnotherapy reverse that or
Great
let it
question.
go?
To put it very simply, he could not run pictures naturally, automatically, and comfortably of what he wants.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
It's very easy to say, I want to win. We have a particular performance enhancement process in hypnosis that we run. It includes a bit of NLP first. So we install certain pictures in the person's mind. And we did that with Kyle, and then we did the hypnosis session. I mean, it's phenomenal what we see. This guy, I'm not surprised. You could literally, and I know I'm going to sound like an arrogant dude here, but I'm going to say that you can present me any NBA player, and I promise you, they work with me for 1 to 3 hours, and I guarantee you the results will change.
Yeah, I believe that. Everything starts and stops with our minds.
So you're right. You know, it's been said that 80 to 90% of Olympic gold medalists are using some form of it. Conor McGregor, he was a plumber in Ireland.
Yeah.
He read the book Secret, for God's sake.
Yeah.
He got into NLP hypnosis from what I've heard. And he's like, I'm going to be a UFC champion. 2.5 years later, he was a plumber.
Yeah. Wow.
So you're right. I love what you said earlier. There is a percentage of people that are believing in it and they're doing it. Now, what's the difference in them and people who don't do it? Well, one big difference is that they have a very specific purpose and goal. Like they just do.
Yeah.
Sports people do, business people do. And so what happens is they're like, what do I need to do to get there? I'm going to use it. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And so I think to people listening, one of the biggest recommendations is, and I'm sure you would say the same, get clear where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, just adjust, because it's funny. I see this when I work with teams as well, that, in the physical fitness world, it's very, you can physically train to just, to be healthy, which is great, obviously. Or if you have some sort of event, let's say you're training for a marathon, whatever it is, it's just completely different. Like you have an anchor to your training. You're training for a particular purpose. And for whatever reason, it's not the norm to do the same thing when it comes to the mind. But to me, it's just, it's as if not more important to think, okay, well, what am I training for right now? In this case with Kyle, obviously, I'm assuming, it's qualified for the Olympics or something to that effect, right? Like there's an event that, okay, well then if that's the purpose, like what can I throw at it? Mentally, physically, spiritually, like let's go. I mean, there's so many tools, right? Yeah. And I just feel like it's empowering, but also be just a lot more motivating and inspiring to know that you're lining up these tools and these practices for something, right?
Yeah.
So
I think you're quite right. I think the bigger problem, the bigger challenge, and the bigger opportunity is how do we help through our platforms, through our work, through whatever we know. And, it's just, I think people getting more clarity over who they are, what their values are. This is a very near and dear topic to me. Yeah. It comes from NLP, but it comes from my own experience, right, in life. Get so clear on your values. You do not have the option to not shine when you live in your values. It's impossible. Your executive function of the brain is dialed in, prefrontal cortex. Everything is dialed in. when you know your values and you live in your values. Unfortunately, a lot of people are trying to live other people's values. What other people said is important. Because what is a value? What's important to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone's running on the money, whatever. Get clear on who you are. Get clear on what brings you alive. Get clear on your values. Get clear on where you're going. Then this stuff is like fuel. Like this will just massively enhance it, right? And that's what you said. Sports people, business people, sales people, high performers, coaches, anybody like that who's just decided. You know, I heard this definition of courage the other day, Mark. It's the ability to say no to 999 things to pick the one.
Yeah, well, I like that.
Do not keep your options open. We don't need it.
Yeah.
Just pick one or two things and go all in. Then there's hypnotherapy, NLP, all this mind stuff, the unconscious mind tools. That's just like fire because you already know where you're going. Now you're just enhancing it, enhancing your speed.
Oh, I love it. I am. You've definitely, piqued my curiosity and sparked my mind to go down and dig further and bring in some new tools for my bag essentially as well. So, I'll link to your works and please let me know where we could all follow and learn more on your side. But also outside of your ecosystem, is there a book? Is there a podcast? Is there some sort of resource that you have personally found helpful if someone wants to kind of like the basics of hypnosis and understand a little bit more and play around with a tool like this? What would you suggest?
I've got to quickly cover up the last three principles. I think I left a big open loop on the five principles. I'll do that pretty quickly. But we have a podcast called Neuro Masters Podcast. So it's three separate words. Neuro Masters Podcast. I think that'd be a great place for anybody who's like, okay, this stuff is important. You've got to find this important. Like, it's your mind. Your mind doesn't own you. You are the entity that the mind belongs to, right? If you're one of those, of course, your podcast, I'm sure people love, enjoy listening, but that one gets a little bit more technical, and that'll be really cool for people. In terms of what did you ask me that?
Outside of your direct ecosystem, because we'll naturally link to all of that, but are there any other books or resources that even when you were getting involved in this that were helpful? That's just one that stands out.
There's a lot. I think you guys can definitely start with the Power of the Subconscious Mind, Dr. Joseph Murphy. I mean, they're one of the best books written. Okay. It's very simple. In today's world, when I look at it, the book is so simple, right? But
simple works.
It's still accurate, right? And NLP is just like breaks it all down. But that's a pretty cool book. Everybody should read it. Everybody, everywhere should read it, right? There's a book called Making Your Brain Work for a Change or something similar like that. Okay. That's one of the first books I read. I think it's written by one of the co-creators of NLP. That's a really cool book. And so I think the bottom line is, Mark, the science is very simple. People have tried to put it into law of attraction, secret manifestation. In reality, whatever you focus on will take form.
Yeah. And I think we can grasp that.
But how do we focus? How do we consistently focus on something? Right? Yeah. So that is just a breaking down, seeing pictures, hearing sounds, feeling the feelings now, right? Of what is going to be, all that stuff about acting as if. One of the greatest tips I can give you and your audience is active as if. If you have a goal, if you have a desire, can you act as if you have it? I'm not talking about faking it till you make it. I'm asking you, can you act as if you have it? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you think? What would your routines be? What would your discipline be? Because if you cannot act as if you have it, there is a problem.
Yeah.
Either the goal is not congruent with your value system or you don't really want it. Simple test.
That's powerful. That's a powerful test. And I'm thinking of examples in my life too, of like even just projects that are developing where there's intuitive nudges around, I don't know, like if that actually came through, is that really in alignment? There's so many, the thing with what you were saying about act as if, there's so many examples that prove that to us, right? Like even when you feel comfortable, you're wearing something that, for a lot of guys, often it's like you put on a good quality suit of some sort and you can feel the confidence, right? Or, whatever that thing is for you. But we've all been in a situation where you feel a little bit different by manipulating certain circumstances, right? And I think coming into this work from that perspective of, hey, don't forget about all these moments where you've experienced and you've seen the results of that. There's a lot more that you can do. And if we quiet our mind enough to tap into what you're saying, and tap into the subconscious world, and then of course linking the kind of that higher consciousness, man, there's a lot of possibility there. And that's exciting, right?
I just love the acting as if concept. I think it's a very simple tip. Everybody can do it.
Yeah.
Start with the small stuff. You want to go to the restaurant. You want to go to that really cool restaurant, right? Can you act? And it's a bit fancy.
Yeah.
Can you act as if you're there? Now, we have this concept we call association and dissociation. Associating means, can you step into your body, look through your own eyes, see what you would see, hear what you would hear, feel what you would feel, right? Very simple. You say, I want this house in Seattle in front of the water, 6 bedrooms, amazing home. Oh, yeah? You have no idea, Mark, how many times I'm saying, okay, I want you to step into your body and see it as though it's real. How do you feel? Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Interesting.
I feel a bit of angst, right?
Yeah.
80% of people are afraid of having the exact thing they say they want.
Wow. That's powerful.
So I think it's very cool to just practice it. Like we have this whole methodology that this is a bit, our brand of NLP is very much a brand called Neuro Hacking. So I had a lot of what has me become, fulfilled and successful to the extent that I've been able to, like, we have a multi 7-figure business. We have, and I really do have fulfillment, Mark. This is not just like, the dollars, right? And I did a lot of things and I've just built them all in. One of the things we say is act as if, right? And we have these certain tools. There's a certain process, the 9-step process we say. And if you cannot act as if, you stop on the 3rd step because you got to make some changes before that. It's pretty simple. It's not that hard. People say to me, I want the house, 7 bedrooms on the wall. Okay, can you act? You're not wanting it, but you can't even act as if you have it. The fact is, Mark, if you can act as if you have it, your likelihood of getting that thing is exponentially higher. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. No, I've been there. And I think many of us know, and we pretend not to know, but the signs are there, right? And I think that for me, that's the big one. It's like if you pull out of the rat race and the autopilot of life and whatnot, get clear on who you are and who you want to become and what that feels and looks like with your values, and then link up and attach some really good tools. And obviously we're focusing on hypnotherapy and NLP, which is a beautiful set of tools. It's just a beautiful way to live. And like the ripple effect from living from that place. I mean, that you're not getting up at 2 a.m. for a dollar situation. I mean, clearly you're passionate about the topic, and we want to provide more access to these tools. And of course the work that you and the team are doing. So this was a blast. I mean, I knew this was going to happen. We could talk for hours.
I know, right?
But this was a real treat, and we'll have to, maybe we'll have to do a part 2 one of these days and continue down. But any final, like, what's the message you'd love to leave people with if you had kind of one line to say?
If I had one line to say, all problems are communication problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very deep meaning to what I just said, right?
Yeah.
And that includes communication with yourself.
Yeah, that's the big one. So
learning how to communicate, learning the impact of words. We say in our field, map is not the territory. Mark, once I said the word, I had a group of people and I said, I'm going to say one word, and can you tell me what you saw, what you heard, what you felt? And I said the word love. People said, oh, I saw my family, I saw my dog, I saw a big red heart, whatever. And this one lady said to me, Mark, you know what she said? She said, Reg, it's only one word that came to my mind when you said love. I said, what? She said, chore.
She said what? Sorry?
Chore.
Chore.
Like
okay.
CHORE, like chore. So everybody experiences things differently, and we think that one size fits all. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you can understand what something I could say, Mark, could leave a person feeling suicidal. One line I could say, right? Or it could make them feel so empowered, so good about themselves. And that could drive their behavior. So would that say that communication with yourself and others is probably the most important skill set you can ever learn? When you think about hypnotherapy, when you think about NLP, it's nothing but communication.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful way to wrap. Well, thank you, brother. Again, thanks for getting up, making time, showing up with beautiful energy and presence. I mean, I commend you for that, given the hour it is in Australia right now. And a higher thank you for the work that you're doing and putting out there, and just changing a lot of lives, a lot of businesses, a lot of beautiful moments and relationships with people, with themselves and others, and so forth. That's something I think to be very proud of. So I hope
thank you, Mark.
You and the team feel that in the heart, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark. We love what we do, and you're quite right. I know it's 2 a.m., but it's like, hey, this was booked 2 months ago, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna. You cannot make reasons, to get yourself out of these things. It's spreading the word, and thank you to you for doing some great work out there. My people who contacted your people, or whatever the case was, speak very highly of your message and your podcast. So well done to you as well.
Thank you. Received.